The Democratic Labour Party is forced to respond to Prime Minister Mia Mottley's attempt to misinterpret this party's call for a pause in the facing of rising COVID-19 cases. It appears that she missed the point. Our call was for the Prime Minister to implement tougher measures, to take a pause before we crash. A lockdown is not the only tool available in the toolbox. It can also be seen as the leader of this country trying to build a straw man to knock it down. In the face of no opposition to this administration's policies, it is our job to rise to the occasion, particularly when the lives of citizens are involved. From day one, the DLP has been engaged in the battle to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in Barbados. Very early this year, our leader Verla de Pisa called for what she termed at the time a reset. Motley scoffed at that time also, and the country was later led into a full lockdown. We recently suggested breaking down the information in the COVID chart, showing the number of vaccinated persons and severity of illness, and we are pleased that the Ministry of Health has taken up that advice. We also were the ones who suggested drive-through service at the gymnasium based on overseas practices experience. We offer advice where we see the government has fallen short. We are fully engaged and will continue to be, despite the defensive and oftentimes patronizing manner in which the leader of this country responds to criticism. Given the magnitude of new infections and a clear indication that there is community spread of the Delta variant and with the lab on the strain, it would be prudent to implement a reset at this time by introducing more robust protocols to keep Barbadians safe. Failure to do so could result in the country being forced into a lengthy lockdown, which is more deleterious to the economy than a short, targeted reset. Barbados does not have the UK and Canadian governments waiting to save us by halting airlift. They did that already. These nations are now almost fully vaccinated and close to herd immunity. Earlier this year, when Canada halted their airlift from the country, it allowed them breathing space to recover from the spread of the Alpha variant. The risk of COVID to the Canadian and UK market is much less at this time as a result of the level of vaccination in those countries. The DLP fully supports the vaccination program and since February 2021 hosted programs to inform persons about the importance of taking the vaccine. However, based on the current rate of vaccination and the capacity of the Ministry of Health to vaccinate willing persons, we are still some months off from herd immunity. Part of the problem is the messaging. The anti-vaxxers have been able to be more effective in their dissemination of information than the largest cabinet in Barbados' history and their hordes of consultants. We would also wish the Prime Minister to note that there are thousands of have-nots at home every single week when companies shut down because of COVID-19 cases. Every week we see a list of organizations which are falling victims to the spike which is evidently out of control. Families have been suffering for a very long time and the constant references to food packages is nothing short of demeaning. Barbadians want to work and earn their keep in an environment that does not compromise them and their families. The only way this can happen is if the government stops trying to appease certain sectors of the society and gets tougher in enforcing strict guidelines. In addition, we must note that the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners has also called for tougher measures. Again, we must ask what is the cost-benefit analysis done when we compare the tourist spend with the $46 million voted this week and all other prior expenses. Some 1,500 meals daily alone for those isolated must cost a pretty penny. There was a boast about record July highs, when it's historical fact that summer guests don't spend. Less now that they are hardly leaving the properties to mix freely. We wish them to come, but ensure that the protocols are keeping our workers from taking the variants to their households. Government should consider implementing a mandatory 3-day quarantine on arrival with testing on day 3. As well as providing testing kits for households to help with contact tracing and easing the pressure off the Best de Santos lab. It is time for the Prime Minister to stop blaming Barbadians for the government's policy failures. The government's first responsibility is to protect its citizens. On the current trajectory, if nothing is done, we may very well face the lockdown which the government fears. In conclusion, Prime Minister Motley needs to understand that we are indeed in this together, and twisting statements for political effect will not bully the DLP into silence, nor will that approach save Barbadian lives. There have been 51 martyrs to date. This is Andre Worrell, Vice President of the Democratic Labour Party, candidate for St. John, and spokesperson for Health, Water and Sanitation.